What's up, everybody? Thank you for spending some time with us today. There were some technical difficulties, which sometimes happens when we're trying to get franchisees on to talk with you. Thank you to those that are watching live. I have invited on Colin, who leads up franchise development, in case he can make it on here. But I figured I would go ahead and go live because I study franchising for a living. And if I have to talk about how you go from fan to multi-unit franchisee, perhaps I can give you some good information that might help you as you are going through your process of deciding if franchising makes sense for you. So I want to start with the basics of restaurant ownership, because ultimately this is for the melting pot, which would be you buying into restaurant operations. And if you don't have experience in this or don't have restaurant experience, then you're starting at a very entry level point. Actually, here's Colin. Let me bring him on. There's Colin. Hold on. There we go. Look at that. Now we have two of us. So let me, Colin, I'm giving an open statement to anybody that's watching, just so that they have a sense of how you go from fan to multi-unit operator. Then I'll let you chime in and give your 2 cents. So you've decided restaurant franchising makes sense for you. And I've advised people on this. My number one recommendation is to think in threes. And it might be a large number to think about, but I mean, you have to sign up for a 3-unit deal if you choose to go into a restaurant brand tomorrow. But you need to have that mentality, because most people that get into restaurant ownership, unless you really knock it out of the park on unit 1, it takes time and effort to get to a place where you feel like you're building true wealth for your family. So the rule of 3, my number one piece of advice is you look at a business that you can invest or comfortably invest into 3 units. You open up 1, you have enough for a rainy day, and you have enough money to scale. The number one reason I see franchisees stall out after they've made the choice to get into restaurant ownership is because they are not properly capitalized and they don't have the right mindset to get involved into that franchise. And so they get to a place where they're stressed financially, or they're overwhelmed with the business that they're having to operate. So for any of you that are watching live, obviously you've landed on this because you want to learn more about going from a melting pot fan to become a multi-unit franchisee. Step 1 is think through, what are you going to need financially to make sure this investment will return what you're expecting for your family? Now, on the fan to multi-unit franchisee, fan of the brand, what I love most about the melting pot franchise community is everybody was a fan of the brand. Either they worked in the brand, or they were just super fanatical about the brand, or they can remember back to a date that they had a long time ago and remember just how they felt inside in this experiential moment. And so when you're transitioning from fan to franchisee, you have to understand, like, you're putting on a new cap. You're not there to eat the fondue. You're there to sell the fondue. And so now, in order to do that, marketing and operations end up being a critical point. And the last thing I'll say, and then Colin, I want you to just give opening statements on how things are going with the brand right now. But what impressed me most as an outsider, when we first began working with the melting pot, I remember Colin might have actually picked me up that time, but we walk into this building, unassuming, dark windows. You can't even tell. It's a corner corporate unit. Yep. And you walk into the building and you're just blown away with culture. And so when I think about why people buy into a brand, they're buying because I believe in the culture, I believe in the vision, I can see the support that's going to be around me, and then obviously the business fundamentals of I believe in the product. I think that the investment is sound, the validation is strong, I can open where I want to open. But I walk into this unit and I remember being walked around, and I'm like, wow, look at all this infrastructure that's here to support franchisees. It's phenomenal. And so part of the gap that we're trying to close for fans of the brand that want to move into franchise ownership is giving you a glimpse into just the depth that is behind you, because unless you go to a discovery day, which is the point that you go and visit Tampa and meet the corporate team, until you go to the discovery day, you don't know what this infrastructure is. But I'm telling you, it'll blow your mind. And I said last thing, but the last real thing that I'm going to say is the CEO, Bob, walks me around, and this stuck with me. There's a swing in the middle of their office. And he said, "You remember being a kid and enjoying a swing?" I go, yeah. He's like, "Well, can you get on a swing and not have fresh creativity and go back to your childhood and have a smile? I'm like, it's a great idea. And so it's such a simple detail, but it stuck with me that here's this swing in the middle of a corporate building, just to encourage the team to keep going back to a place of creativity, which impacts the franchisee. And so I say all that because for you that are watching this from afar, and we're going to hear from Colin in a second, this is your opportunity to start taking the steps into deciding whether this brand makes sense for you. It costs you $0 to schedule a conversation with Colin and start learning about what the business opportunity is. And frankly, that coaching is priceless as a standalone object. So that's my opening statement. Colin, give us a sense of what's going on with the brand, and obviously to anybody that's watching now or in the future, what are you excited about?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about growth. I mean, at the end of the day, we've got 5 signings in the last 6 months. The brand's moving in a great direction, going upwards, and the amount of people that are coming in and talking to us more and more is excited. I mean, we just took a trip up to Omaha. We're looking at spaces on the West Coast, a new space in North Carolina that just came up. What it is seeing that if you have a legacy brand like Melting Pot that's been around for 50 years, you can't rest on the laurels of what you did all those years ago. You have to continue to evolve. And I think Melting Pot's doing a good job at doing that. And that's evident by the fact that we're signing new franchises every day.
I love that. Well, Becky just joined us. Hey, Becky, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Okay, now I got to find the right viewpoint, so I'm not the big head. There we go. No, that's better. So, Becky, the topic at hand for those that are watching live, and then obviously in the future, is how to go from fan to a franchise owner. And it's such a big, I think, psychological thing, financial thing to go through, because you're making a decision to invest your life savings into a different type of business that most human beings haven't been a part of as a franchise. So I would love, as an opening statement, share with us your franchise story. How did you even get involved with the Melting Pot, and what made you say yes?
Yeah, it was a backup to my husband's corporate job. We had 3 small children. We were living in Tulsa, and he was in technology, and it was just every other day. We're going to move. We're not going to move. You're going to get laid off. You're not going to get laid off. Just the stress of having a corporate job. And one day in the kitchen, we're like, okay, this is getting old. What can we do? And it was like, let's open a business. So we didn't start out looking for a Melting Pot or looking for a restaurant. We started out we want our own business so that we can hopefully control our destiny a little bit more. And a friend of ours said, hey, open a Melting Pot. And quite frankly, we didn't know what a melting pot was. We really didn't even know at the time. And we drove down to Dallas to the Addison location and came back just loving it. And I mean, it was like love at first sight. We're like, man, this is amazing. There's nothing like this in Tulsa. We want to do this. And we'd never owned a business. We, knew nothing about running a restaurant. And that's kind of how we got started. So.
All right. So there's a bunch that I want to unpack from that. Let me start with the turbulent side. And I have 2 comments, and then I want your reaction to it. I think about every franchise owner that I've ever met, and there's some sort of event that causes them to say, I'm going to make a change in my life. Like, they didn't set out to be, majority of them didn't set out to be entrepreneurial. They had great careers. And then there's this turbulent moment where they say, this is stressful. I'm not in control. Is there something that I can have control over? And the second side of that is I wrote a column for 1851 years ago that the title was Catch the Entrepreneur Before They Catch You. And I'm always fascinated, especially with franchisees, because it's almost like there's a chip on your shoulder. Like, I gave corporate America my life and my time and my family's time. Now because you gave me this chip on the shoulder, I'm going to go crazy in my next business and make sure it's uberly successful. How does that message relate to you guys? And was that like, is it a chip on the shoulder, and going through that turbulence was like enough was enough? You just didn't want to do it anymore?
A little bit of that. I think it was more wanting to secure where we lived. We've had the restaurants now for 20 years. I can't believe it's 20 years, but and during that time, Mark has. I'd say for about half of that time, he's continued to work in the corporate world, just wanting to get our kids through college without loans, and they're stair steppers, so it's braces, car, school. So it was he did work during part of that time just so that we could do that, but I think it was more we wanted to be in one spot. It wasn't so much as we hate corporate life. It was we don't want to move. Yeah. I think the moment we call it the kitchen table moment, that this is when this happened, was my desire for our kids to have friends from kindergarten on. I wanted them to graduate high school and know that they had a friend that they knew from kindergarten. And that wasn't going to happen in an IT corporate job because we were going to have to probably move. And so that was kind of it. We definitely didn't hate his corporate job, just wanted the control of where our life was going to be.
I mean, when we've surveyed franchisees and we started asking about what is the real purpose you do this, it without fail, it's always something to do with family, and it could be that scenario could be building wealth or legacy for your children, and obviously you've been doing this for a long time. The other thing that's fascinating about your opening statement is friends say, "Oh, you should open up a melting pot," and you have no idea what it is, and so you drive to Addison, you see one. And so you're going in there with a lens of we want to see what this is, but you're also going in with the lens of do we want to buy this? How quickly into that experience are like, I can't believe I didn't know this existed, and this is what we want to
do? Really quickly. I think our first discussion was in December or January. We went down for Discovery Day in February, and we opened the next February. So it was pretty quick. We were ready to make a decision. So yeah, I don't know. Like I said, we just fell in love with it, and and we might've been young and dumb and stupid, but we hadn't, we didn't know very much about how restaurants worked, from the business side, but we're both smart people. So, we figured it out, but, it was fun.
So a question just came in from our audience. So Becky, who was your mentor for a sector that you were absolutely new to? So how are you navigating those waters when you're going into a business that you guys are new to?
Oh, that's a really good question. I've told many people this before. You just have to have many mentors. You have to go, hey, I've never run payroll for a restaurant before. So then you reach out to your network of friends who we have a lot of and go, okay, who knows anything about payroll? And then all of a sudden you got HR legal problems you don't know what to do with. And you reach out to your network of friends and find out who who's an expert in that. So, it was a lot of people, and we're pretty blessed to have had, a big network of friends that we could reach out to in many different professions. I would definitely say the franchise business consultants at Melting Pot have really partnered with us. And we had a couple early on that, we still send Christmas cards to, even though they're not involved with the Melting Pot anymore, just because they really helped us get through learning how to run a restaurant. So,
Colin, on the flip side, corporate looking at a franchise owner, and obviously great example. Becky and Mark have been in the system for a long time. And how many units do you guys own, Becky?
We have 3 Melting Pots.
Okay, so multi-unit franchisee, 20 years in the system. Corporately, you see a franchisees like them. Like what do you see in them? What excites you about Becky and Mark?
I think it's really just the way they build teams. I mean, I think there's not one owner in this franchise or other franchise that I could think of that doesn't put the right people in the right place to win. And Becky and Mark have done a phenomenal job finding the right people to help them. Becky can't be in Tulsa while being in Oklahoma City, while being in the Panhandle. She has the ability to really say, look, we have our eyes on the target. We know the goals we need to meet, and they put the right people in the right place. Yet being helped out by, like she said, franchise business consultants, marketing brand managers, and the rest of the 55 plus people in Tampa that are doing our best to help them out every day.
Now that you've done this for so long, Becky, like if you reflect backwards, are there things you wish you would have known in the beginning, or as you've progressed your business portfolio that like the aha moment? They're like, oh, that's how this works. Is there anything that has appeared that maybe could be good advice for someone that's considering buying a franchise?
I don't know about specifically buying a franchise, but running a business. I think looking back, I would be quicker to get rid of the people who don't fit our culture, for sure. I would be slower to hire and make sure that I hired the people who do fit my culture. I think that honestly, guests are easy, inventory is easy, payroll, accounting, all of that stuff. You learn how to do it. Like I said, you just figure it out and you do it. The hardest part is finding the right people to be on your team. And we've made some mistakes. We have hired too quickly many times and had to, make a decision a couple months later. So that's the hardest part.
Two comments on that. One, that connects with me very well. I think about our own business, and there's been moments because us as humans, we're conditioned, if you're not growing, you're dying. So you think, well, we got to hire to fill gaps. But I've had the mental discussion in my head of, well, what if we scaled backwards, but made sure we were our infrastructure was full of A and B players? What would that look like to our business long term? And is there value in taking a step backwards to move forward? And then I think about on the flip side, the same philosophy with corporate. I see people that have been there for many, many, many years. And in my opinion, the culture and the reward and satisfaction that, say, a Colin gets when he's able to help someone achieve their dreams and achieve their business outcomes, like that helps keep people, good people in an organization. Colin, from your side, any comments on that?
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things that Becky brought up that I'm seeing all these years later, almost 2 decades at this point, is that they came in without the restaurant experience. They weren't coming from, oh, our family owned this restaurant and I've been working restaurants my whole life. And that proves true today. The last couple of teams that we've brought on as franchise candidates, one of them being the great team in Bentonville that Becky definitely had a good communication with and helped out, was they don't have the restaurant background. So our goal really isn't to find that because of the simplicity of the operations culinary wise in the brand. Really what we're looking for when it comes to it is, do you match the core values of what we see in our franchise community? And are you that entrepreneurial spirit that really wants to take an investment and make the most of it? Not just, I'm going to throw some money at something and hopefully it works out. If that was the case, we'd have a lot more melting pots, but I don't think we'd have them long term, I think, at the end of the day.
Becky, with how fast you went from fan to franchisee, does it surprise you that more people don't go that fast? Because, I mean, obviously, like, melting pot is a great size of a business, but it's such a special thing. You think it's because they don't know that it's a franchise, or does that surprise you? Because for you, you got it right away.
Yeah, but it takes it's not for the faint of heart. So you have to, if to do this, you got to have a little bit of a risk factor. You got to be somebody who's willing to take a risk. I've talked to friends about, who've thought about opening their own business. And when you tell them that, hey, you got to go into this knowing the whole thing could fail, and you got to be okay with that. Are you okay if everything failed? And they're like, oh no, never. Well, then you don't go open a business, because you certainly don't go into it expecting it to fail, but you have to go into it knowing it could fail. And you gotta, in your heart, be okay with that and know how you're going to handle it if it does. So, like I said, it's not for the faint of heart, and it doesn't surprise me that I think there's very few people who actually are willing to step out there and take that risk. So,
this is going to be an odd comment, so I preface it like that, but I think about the mentality of 17, 18-year-olds that go to college. Like, the reality is, you're going to pay a lot of money to go get this extended education, and it can fail. The only reason it's going to fail, though, is when you look in the mirror and take accountability. Like, your actions are what could make this fail. And I think there's a lot of similarities in franchisees. Like, if I took every franchisee in the world that is more whiny and complaining, I'm like, what are your complaints? And if I held their face up to a mirror and said, say it, they would deflect and they would say it's the franchisor's fault. And so it's interesting to me because, like, as 17, 18-year-olds, like the risk factor of going to college is high. Leaving our families, moving somewhere else, and taking that risk is high. Then we get there, and some take self-accountability immediately and push through and make sure that they finish it. So some don't, and they fail. And so as we get older in life, and it's probably circumstantial, families, jobs, healthcare, like all of these things make it a little bit more complex to have those risk factors. But it's almost like you're investing in yourself in college 2.0, but the difference is you own a business. So I agree with you completely. It's just fascinating to me how fast the mindset shifts based on how life's circumstances hit you, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. You just have to be confident. And Mark and I have always been like, by God, we will never fail. It's like, I cannot tell you how many 16, 18-hour days we have pulled because something messed up and we're like, it is not going to fail today. And we are not going to let this happen today. So, but you're right. Not everybody has that drive. So.
No, it's they put guardrails around what are they willing to do. I mean, like I think about my own business. I'm the same. Like if I gotta get on a plane, I've done it many times. I've gone to Tampa and had dinner with the Melting Pot team away from my family. And so some people might say that's too much for me. I don't want to have that life. And some say I'm willing to hustle and build relationships and do what counts and what matters in order to grow my business. And it's a mentality thing. There's a reason there are more employees than there are business owners. So you have to get to that mindset. But if you do, and then you learn what it feels like to battle through a few brick walls, because over 20 years, you had 2007, 2008, you had COVID, you had multiple elections. Like you've been through a lot. So, but it gives you perspective that the next brick wall that appears, your confidence is going to help you bust through it. And I think that's part of it. And obviously the magic of being able to do it with a partner who you love makes a huge difference too. So I appreciate all those insights. Any last final comments for anybody that's watching on if they're on this like fictional edge of deciding whether they should jump off and have a conversation on anything you would say to them about business ownership?
Yeah, we've loved it. I mean, we're so proud of what we've accomplished. Our kids are proud of us. It's been a great fit for our lives. Met more people than we thought. More people have been part of our lives than we ever thought. We would know. We've taken great trips. So it's definitely our life, and we're happy with it. And I promise you, nobody asked me to say this, but we really love the Melting Pot franchise. It is over the years. We have never felt like we worked for them. It has always felt like a partnership. And during COVID, I think I made the statement that that franchise cared more about their franchisees than they did their money. They took care of us during that time just phenomenally. And I will, forever be grateful, because I don't know that other franchises are like that. But we have truly, love being part of the Melting Pot and feel like they're always been our partners.
I love that statement. I'm going to give a quick story because it's going to show a reverse. I was 24 years old. Me and a few friends, we talked about buying a franchise. I happened to have them as a client, but I said, I'm going to be silent on this. I want you guys to go through the process. And so they're going through the process and we're weighing the pros and cons. And Hurricane Katrina hit, and it wiped out 9 out of 10 restaurants for one franchisee in New Orleans. And I called our contact. He didn't know that I was looking. I said, that's a really tough situation. What are you going to do to make it right? He goes, Nick, the benefit of being the franchisor is we don't have to do anything. That's his money, not ours. And it always stuck with me that in a moment of distress, I heard a franchisor say I did not have the back of the franchisees. Now we did not move forward, and thank God I was able to experience that for myself. But it does take a special franchisor to say, ultimately, there's currency in doing the right thing and trying to support those that have invested their life savings into this business and believe in it. Let's step up when shit hits the fan. And I think that's a fantastic statement that you were able to share, because I don't think every franchise was like that. Colin, any final words?
No, I agree with Becky. I mean, I was in operations at the time when COVID happened, and I didn't have the skin in the game. I was just the operator of that location. But, my staff, my guests, a lot of the concern was riding on my shoulders. So when I was able to call the corporate office and talk to Bud Culp, who was an absolute maniac during that time, and all he said to me was, "Don't worry about it. We got it." That was it. And that was the first time I met Bud Culp. And I still remember it to this day, that even in this wild circumstance of uncertainty, that this guy looked at me on the phone and just said, "We got you. We'll take care of it." And I'm telling you, if I felt that as somebody who wasn't an owner, I can imagine what these owners felt like when that opportunity came up and they were making that same phone call. So the franchisor, Bud, Bob, all the leadership team, they're doing the right things. And I think it shows. And obviously Becky's told you a lot about what that means.
I love that. Well, I'm gonna close by saying this to anybody that's watched this live or watching this taped. I mean, the point of this is to open up the personalities at the end of the day. And I will always say this, you bet on the jockey, not on the horse. And so in this sense, you're hearing Becky talk about humans. You're hearing Colin talk about humans. If it were me looking at investment, I'm betting on that first and then learning what the widget is. So our first question is beautiful because we're hearing Becky go from non-restaurant operations into owning now 3. And the question was, who's her mentor? And she pointed to all the infrastructure that she put around her friends, family, coworkers, corporate, and all that answer is I bet on people. And I think that is phenomenal. So to the two of you, thank you for sharing some of your time with us. Becky, thanks for sharing your story. Awesome story. Look forward to hearing more of it. So best of luck to you guys. For Becky and Colin, I'm Nick. This is another episode of Meet the Zor. Be sure to fill out that form. It costs you nothing. Schedule a call with Colin and just see what happens. They're valuing that. Take care, everybody.
All right, thanks.